Welcome to That Eight, a queer food podcast. I'm your host, Justin Burke. Hospitality can be weird. Sometimes it feels like you're being processed. Other times you walk into a space and immediately think, oh, someone actually thought about this. In this episode, I'm talking with Symantha Duggan, co-owner of Vesper Books and Wine in Detroit, a bookstore, wine bar, and community space that makes you want to slow down and stay a while. Samantha's path here is anything but linear. Cosmetology, wellness, construction management, and somehow all of it shows up in how she thinks about people, care, and space. We get into building Vesper from the ground up, designing a space that actually feels good to be in, and why hospitality isn't about perfection. It's about intention, accessibility, and not making people feel weird when they walk in the door. This episode of That Eight is about hospitality, but also care, community, and what it looks like when a space just gets it right. I'm really glad you're here. Samantha, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, John.
I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out and chat. So I think obviously we want to talk about Vesper, but I think before we get into that, I would just love to know a little bit more about your earlier professional years. I know you had left Detroit, but you ultimately came back to Detroit. So what led to that, and just the experiences that have shaped this sense of hospitality and invoking belonging and care that you do at Vesper so well.
Yeah, thank you. To be totally honest with you, I've never had like a straight shot life trajectory. So I went to cosmetology school after
Okay.
narrowly finishing high school as a terrible teen with a buzz cut who knew everything there was to know about the world and couldn't listen to any adult. So I went to cosmetology school and then I got placed at a salon that was one of the top five in the United States at the time. And was it was I learned so much, but I think in working there for 2 years, unfortunately, I was assaulted. So I ended up breaking
Mm,
my neck, and I started apprenticing at a salon when I was 16. I went to cosmetology school, and then I got placed immediately after. So, like, most of my, like, adult developmental years were focused on this one goal. And unfortunately, when I had my neck injury, I was no longer able to do everything that I worked for.
yeah.
So I pretty intentionally decided, which also, the clarity you get of having a mandatory bed rest for 6 months, it's a
Yeah.
little different. Would love with different circumstances to have that now. But I decided, you know what? If I have to completely restart my life, I'm going to do it in a city in which I don't know anyone. And if I have to restart my entire foundation of being, I'm really going to do it in every aspect and try to build that life that I really desired. So I moved to Austin, Texas. Didn't know a
Okay.
single person. Started working in the wellness industry, which was adjacent enough to cosmetology without me having to go back to school, or
Yeah.
the licensing between like Michigan and Texas are very, very different.
Yeah.
Did that for a couple of years. I actually, at South by Southwest, ended up meeting my ex fiance. So after working in Texas, working in day spas, working for predominantly high end day spas. So when it comes
Hmm.
to hospitality, a lot of where we got our training from was from the Ritz Carlton. So
Okay.
that like white glove hospitality was really, really
Yeah.
embedded in my
That's
brain.
like intense.
It was, like, I remember having one moment in which, like, I was this, like, "I'm 22 and I don't need sleep. I'm just gonna sleep in my car in the parking lot so I can be the first one in the morning."
Yeah.
Because we had, like, this Dallas Cowboys widow who was coming in for, like, spa services, and, she was not really open up to care and really, really reluctant to this entire experience, and, some of her, deceased husband's friends had put this on for her. And one thing that she alluded to was she loved having a scoop of chocolate ice cream with her husband when they would watch, Sunday Night Football before
Oh.
he passed. So I like darted out like a bat out of hell, ran across the street across like 6 lanes of traffic, got this pint of chocolate ice cream. So when she left her service, she was able to have like this one special thing that she alluded to.
That's
And
so special.
it was amazing. She was crying, I was crying, and totally made it about myself, which hindsight's 2020. I was like,
Yeah.
you see what a good job I did. Look at me go."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Yeah, we were able to, like, really build these really intentional and, like, long-lasting, deep human experiences with our guests, and I'm really, really grateful for that experience. I ended up meeting my ex-fiancé at South by Southwest. They lived in France, so I ended up relocating back to Detroit and going back and forth from France. Luckily for us in Detroit, Delta's hub is in Detroit, so it was really, really
Yeah.
easy for me to get back and forth to Paris. Most of my 20s were kind of lived and died by that relationship and trying to make it work as much as I possibly could. While I was
Hmm.
doing that, I got into construction management, which was a hard pivot.
I was going to say, what a
Um,
pivot.
I don't recommend it in a red state as a woman going into construction, but, more power
Yeah.
to you.
Wow.
It did that for, oh goodness, about 8 years, and after, my life changed again. My relationship kinda dissolved. He's still my best friend. Of course, when you, like, grow up and have those, like, pivotal developmental moments with someone,
Yeah.
they kinda stick forever.
Yeah.
And we grew up together, but kinda decided, we were more roommates than we were partners. And then a couple years later, I working in construction management and living in Detroit, I met my fiancé Rob, and he's been a hospitality veteran for, oh goodness, the better part of like 15 years. And that's how we came to start the project of Vesper. So yeah, lots of different moving parts and little life trajectories.
I mean, but that's, I mean, yes, so many moving parts, but also that's kind of how you curate like the best parts of every little aspect of these like different changes of industry and like seeing the good and bad of humanity of different
Yes.
industries. And it really, because I had a similar wild ride, you know.
Yes, you did.
I started working when I was 14 and I think I touched several industries that I have no interest of ever being a part of again, but it really did teach me a lot about myself. Taught me a lot about work, of being an employee and in being an employer.
Yeah, of course.
And like you just really curate all these different aspects and then it just manifests into eventually, hopefully, that like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And
Yeah.
now I have all these tools and it just supports your work. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think like, especially in reading your book, preparing for when you were so gracious to do an author event with us last year. It was so nice to be seen and heard to see that we've had
Yeah.
such a linear pattern in a certain
Yeah.
extent. And I think the things that we both excel at too, no matter what industry or what walk of life or chapter that we're in at that given point, what we excel at reigns through in every single one of those chapters. So yeah, even though
Thanks.
they don't seem so similar, they overlap quite a bit.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. It's funny, like I have a son and though he's not anywhere near thinking of college yet,
Thank
but
God.
you as a thank God. But as a parent, like you think like how will we prepare him for adulthood and what choices he wants to make. And I
Yeah.
think I really don't care ultimately what he does as long as he's a good human. And so, I'm going to encourage him to like maybe don't jump into college, travel for a year, see different parts of the world. Because I think it's really valuable to get as much exposure to different things before you feel pressure to be locked into something
Oh,
that we were
absolutely.
all spoon fed to believe
I
as
mean,
children.
I think, Rob and I were talking about this morning, even just, looking and reflecting on like some of our favorite people in life. Those kids that just like decided in fifth grade what they were going to do, went to college, had this like straight
Mhm.
shot life. Like, they're not my favorite people.
Same.
Perhaps not the most developed sense of empathy, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it does come from that grit and being forced into circumstances in which, like, you might not get to do what you love, but you're doing what you have to, and you're gonna make the best of
Mhm.
it. I mean, that's truly, like, what defines your character. So I love that you're bringing Jasper up in that environment in which he can fail,
Yeah.
and that's really
Yeah,
sacred. That's really, really
yeah,
special.
but yeah, parenting. Woo. It's
You don't hear it
it's
enough, but you're doing
tough.
a good job, my friend.
Thank you, thank you. So let's for our listeners who have not been to Vesper, I want to hear from you. Describe Vesper Books and Wine, like not just what it is on paper, but the energy that you and Rob are trying to cultivate when someone walks through that door.
Ooh, I love that question. So Vesper's actually been a really, really long-term project for me. I tried to do it in Austin about 12 years ago, and if you're mildly aware of real estate pricing in Austin, it
Hmm.
was very, very unattainable. I remember, like, walking through one space and it, like, immediately became that Portlandia sketch of, like, 2 kids trying to rent a loft for $3,000, and they're like, "Well, if we have 65 roommates, we can totally make this happen."
Yeah.
Definitely kinda got into some of those conversations like, "Okay, so if I have 45 investors, I'll die in poverty, but I can open this."
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank goodness it did not pan out in that city at that time, especially at that age. I would have burned that to the ground. Um but once you walk into Vesper, Vesper is a love letter to the community in which it sits. We've been very, very intentional about that. The space itself is about 150 years old. It's an old Detroit savings bank. It has a corner entrance. So as soon as you walk in, you are just washed with light. You get to see the entire space, which I think for me personally creates kind of a sense of safety and the
Hmm.
ability to just like know the entire space that you're walking into. Every single thing that we've chosen for the space itself is very, very intentional. From the murals and the artwork, that's all from our friend Martina, who is a Detroit native. Martina Alexander. The bar is made out of recycled wood that's like set into recycled concrete terrazzo. The bar itself was shaped by a welder in our space. The bar was
Cool.
installed by a woodworker in our space. All of our shelves are custom millwork from our friend Chad down the street. It's every single thing in that space that has been constructed. I know who did it. And I know what came to those decision making conversations in which, like, we selected this type of tile, we selected this wallpaper. We also worked with an entirely female owned and operated architectural firm, which there are very, very
Cool.
few and far between. And I think Elise and the team, like, really knew the maximalism and, like, the luxury that I
Hmm.
wanted it to feel like without being so overpowering that it felt like stuffy.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit louder in our color palettes. It is a little bit more of a bolder space, but I also wanted every single person that walked through that door to feel like this is a place in which you can relax your shoulders. You can bring your whole unique human self to and be seen and heard in your unique human experience. And I think between, the vintage furniture and the decor and the book selections that I hyper curate to make sure that the many diasporas that Detroit is proudly home to are reflected. And with that being said, Detroit is not a very, very wealthy city. So we're very, very intentional about having as many limitations busted when you walk through the door. So
Yeah.
I have used books for sale, have vintage cookbooks for sale that I spend a great deal of time curating. Our glass pour list is not going to be the coolest in the city, but it is going to be very, very reflective of the fact that our community has an average household income median of $35,000. So, in my heart, I cannot justify charging someone $25 for a glass of wine. Our
Yeah.
food's pretty approachable as well, too. Everything is sourced locally as much as we possibly can. Bread comes from a couple of miles away. Comes from Eastern Market. We try to be as accommodating and accessible in language, in knowledge, and what we actually curate to make sure that when you walk in, you feel like you're more so in your best friend's apartment as opposed to some of those like stuffier, like wine bar, bookstore
Yeah.
environments.
I love it. I love it
Thanks.
so much.
It's fun to reflect on it because I feel like most of the conversations I have lately are just like, yeah, I built my own prison to the
Yeah.
tune of $500,000 and
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm going to describe Vesper now because I've had the pleasure of being there because you graciously invited me while I was on the book tour to do an event. Vesper is badass, in my opinion. Like, it is the
Thank you.
coolest place I've ever been to. And I think for so many reasons. Yes, I love the corner entrance because you get this, like you said, and I don't think I actually cognitively thought about it, but there's just so much light that there wasn't a moment of, I don't want to say fear, but I just didn't get anxious. Like, I was just like, wow, I see everything. Like, you walk in, it's like beautiful vintage furniture, smack dab in the middle, like a living room left to you. when you enter books right to you as the bar. And I don't know, it is bright. It's like moody in the best possible way. The books, like it's not you have so many books, but it's displayed in a very calming manner. Like I am not overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed by a lot of like clutter. You honor each book, whether it's brand new or vintage or used, like it's just beautiful. Like each one of them is special. No, one is not better than the other one. The bar is so cozy. Like it's so cozy. And my favorite thing, and I think, I'm sure you'll explain more to it about it, is like, is it an old vault? Is it the old vault
Oh,
that
yeah.
you have?
The
S
actual green room?
The green room. So when when I arrived and, I think Rob met me first, and he was like, "Oh, let me take you to the green room." And I'm like, "I'm sorry." Like, where are we going? And it's the vault, and it's not hidden. It's like in the middle.
Yep.
And it's this vault that y'all made into like the cutest, sweetest little green room with comfortable seating, a table in the middle. There was wine and snacks. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, but that touch, even for like your guest speakers and the hospitality, like meant so much. And I don't know, like what I got from it is whether it's intentional or not, like you all have curated and foster such a queer space in the sense of what queerness is. And I mean, you talked about like marginalized authors are included, the variety of events that I've seen you all host. Like it is so inclusive, so welcoming and comfortable. So can we talk about that sensibility of like how that came together? Like what kind of community were you and Rob hoping to find and create and foster with Vesper?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for your kind words. Something I totally didn't touch on when we were talking about different lives in the past. I did work for Planned Parenthood in the state of Texas and worked on Wendy Davis's campaign when she was running for governor, which as
Cool.
a pro-abortion candidate, wild to see her go as far as she did. And I was so, so
Yeah.
excited to work on that. But with that being said, as a public speaker myself, I'm really funny about my energy before I speak. So we really wanted to be mindful with that vault and having a space in which you can factory reset. You don't have to interact with anyone before you speak if you don't want to. Everyone treats public speaking, and especially with book tours, because they are kind of forced upon authors. If it's not something perhaps you want to do, and it might be something you have to do to sell books, I want to make sure that we're meeting you where you're at. And I think that very specific intentionality of meeting every single guest where they're at when they're coming in, I think it does show. Most of my staff is queer, and I think that does speak to queer hospitality and creating that queer space. But especially like as a queer person myself, I feel like growing up and not having a lot of spaces open or available to me was something I
Mhm.
wanted to be very, very mindful of now that I do have this opportunity to create my own space in which I'm opening a corner of myself to the world. And I want to make sure that every single person does feel welcome and does feel like they can bring their whole selves there. It is kind of funny. Actually, Rob and I were talking about this. His regulars are very different than mine. On on Sundays, we open at 12. If you come in by 12:30, we are up to the gills with regulars that come in religiously every Sunday, and, like,
Mhm.
most of our bar is queer. And
I
it
love
is
it.
so awesome to see, like, this type of, like, devout community kind of blossom within our space,
Mhm.
and all these folks are interacting with one another and creating their own friendships and continuing their lives together outside of Vesper, which is really, really cool. When it comes to our programming, we try to be as mindful of the guest experience as possible. There's not a lot of spaces that are welcoming, especially in Detroit. Detroit is a little bit of like a blue island in a red state. There's not a lot of businesses that either have the opportunity without fear of being persecuted for some reason to host queer focused events. So, with us being so new and that being kind of in our framework as soon as we
Mhm.
opened, that is something that I get to do. And because of, I think, who Rob and I are as people, and what we've done in the past. We don't get so much of that kickback because it's almost assumed that that's how we were going to run a business.
Yeah.
But it does give us a lot of freedom and luxuries. I mean, like even just like queer speed dating events. We were the first folks in the city to like do a theatrical based queer speed dating event, and it was so fun.
What? That is so cool.
It was amazing.
I would have gone. I would have gone and been like, "Yeah, I'm single. Like, let's do this. I just wanna be there."
It was so fun, and speaking of intentionality too, I think Addie, who orchestrated it, was, really, really mindful of the fact that dating as an adult is scary and sucks. We're not having a
Yeah.
good time. Oftentimes when you are on apps or you're meeting people, blindly, you have this, like, representation mask on, and you're not really
Mhm.
getting a chance to connect in really intimate and meaningful ways. So, this girl just scripted every single meeting, start to finish. Also, it speaks to her playwright background, but it was so awesome for her to be like, "We're gonna make people get really vulnerable and uncomfortable, and we're gonna lean into this." I was really
That's
hesitant the first
amazing.
time she did it, but it was amazing. It had, like, a cult following. It was so awesome. But, as far as, like, our author events, it is kind of funny. Most of our events last year, I think we ran the numbers, like 75% of our events were around queer authors, which
Really? That's
go
awesome.
figure.
Yeah. Shocking.
So yeah, I just think everything start to finish, and especially like with our community outreach, something I was really, really mindful of is so I, as a survivor of sexual assault, I spent while I was working in construction, any of my free time teaching consent in high schools and talking about my experience as a survivor in hopes of kind of like bridging that like really, really scary statistical gap. And
Yeah.
in doing so, I ended up meeting a ton of folks from hospitality because unfortunately, sexual violence and hospitality do oftentimes go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And in learning what they were really excited to participate in and what created a safe event for them, and also just mirroring like I said, like that sense of safety when you walk into the space, being able to see everything. We really try to be as conscientious as possible of those experiences. So when it comes to our community outreach, we try to serve the community as much as we possibly can. Every month, I do a Vesper service, which is a cookbook club, and we try to create. We pick a cookbook that's at least been in rotation for a year, so that folks can, if they have to borrow it from the library, cookbooks are really expensive. They have the ability to do so. We each cook through a recipe. It's potluck style. We go around. We talk about why we chose that recipe, why it resonated with us, what we might have done a little bit differently moving forward. And then at the end of the day, all of those excess meals get boxed up and delivered to our community fridge. It has grown to be this incredible, incredible force of feeding our neighbors that has been so amazing. Throughout the week, I have people that are just like, "Hey, I have leftovers. Do you mind dropping this for me?" And we
That's
have regulars that
amazing.
like every single time they come in, they're like, "We made dinner and we made an extra serving. Do you mind dropping this at the fridge?" Which is awesome. A lot of our other efforts have been with like literacy and kids in Detroit because, again, books are expensive. And if you have
Yeah.
children at home, building up those personal libraries where they can read through is a cost that a lot of families like can't, you know, burden the cost of. So we donated, I want to say it was like 2,000 books through a drive,
Oh,
and we
that's
filled
incredible.
crazy.
That's
Our
incredible.
our community is awesome, I gotta say. Like, I think especially in, like, this day and age where we're all getting asked time and time again to, like, every time I pick up my phone, it's like, "Donate to me, donate to me, donate to this cause."
Yeah.
And when inflation is growing and our wallets are getting tighter, our community really shows up in ways in which they can roll up their sleeves and do the work themselves, and that's where we try to meet them in the middle. Everyone wants to do more, everyone's feeling really helpless right now, so every single month doing a donation drive has been so wildly successful because you might not be able to donate $50 to this organization, but you might have something at your house that means an entirely different day for one of your
Yeah.
neighbors. So you really try to focus on that. Yeah, I don't know. It's been really, really cool with programming. I think moving forward this year, Vesper's finally on the map as a culinary bookstore. So I have a ton of author events in the works. I've also partnered with the Detroit Public
Yes.
Library for some of our
That's
larger
great.
events. So cool.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I'm excited to see what comes.
That's so amazing. Um, yeah. It's like, you don't think I can love Vesper more, and I hear this and I'm like, "Ugh," like,
Thank you.
why don't we have a Vesper here? I guess I'll just have to come to Detroit more often.
Yeah, if you wanna invest, buddy, let's go.
Um, I mean, you talked about it, but I wanna focus a little bit on historically, especially in the queer community. we have found these spaces, the third spaces to find safety, to access resources, to communicate with one another. And very clearly, like Vesper is that. But what I think you all do so well and are so mindful of is the intersection of queerness among so many other races, communities, religion. You're not narrow minded. You're not like, our people are only queer people. It's, we're going to take this model that we know about from our community of third spaces and we're going to amplify it. And it's really amazing to me. But I have a question for you of just on a personal level, like what does that mean to you to see it? Because how long Vesper's been around? It's been open for a year, over a year, right? Has it been a year?
Yeah, December I should remember this, oh my goodness, December 4th was our 1 year, so a little over a year.
Yeah. I remember I feel like I remember seeing like a little celebration. I was like, "Oh man, like I want to be there." But what does it feel like personally knowing that like you just said you're on the map now, having this impact and contributing to that history of spaces, of queer
Ooh,
spaces.
um,
It's getting the
to be
feels.
yeah, to be honest, I have, like, a pretty terrible and pretty crippling inferiority complex about it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm grateful enough, to have folks in the industry that, kinda look out for us that I can lean on when needed. Like Ken from Now Serving is
Mhm.
just the epitome of community over competition, and
Such a wonderful human
oh
being,
my god, like,
Ken
Ken for
is.
president, like, I don't know how we can start this, nor I don't think he would want it, but, like, I want
Right.
more of him in the world. Yeah, he and
It
Michelle,
yeah, if we had more Kens, like, whew,
we'd be doing a little bit differently,
person.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty overwhelming. I have to be really, really gracious with myself in the sense that we're doing what we know is right. It has been
Mhm.
a very, very difficult journey. We still have a lot of folks that don't quite understand the concept or the mission, and that's
Sure.
perfect fine. We weren't designed to be a space for everyone.
Mm,
But I think like especially moving into the second year, moving forward with a little bit more clear focus as to what we're doing resonates with people,
mhm.
what we're doing is right for us, and thus it's right for the people that we value and the people in the community. And I mean, every day is kind of an uphill battle with that. Like, even like speaking to inclusivity, we started doing cocktails because we realized a ton of folks that, think wine is not for them feel a hell of a lot more comfortable ordering a cocktail at a bar and would sometimes come in, look at our menu, and walk out without any questions because they felt like it
Yeah.
wasn't for them. And that was something that Rob was very, very strident in implementing. And it's opened us up to so many folks that have become members of our community that if you would have asked me 6 months ago, like, no chance in hell.
I'm so glad you brought that up because wine is such a divider, and I think it's because well, I don't think it's because, I know it's because, you know, there's a level of pretentiousness to it. It was positioned for so long to be like, only the rich drink wine, and if it's not California wine, it's not good wine, and like, especially in this country, they tried really hard to brainwash consumers to be like, it has to be expensive. It has to be from California. And it just like
Exactly.
diluted the diversification of wine, the hands that make the wine, and the fun you can have. Like, there were some really,
Yeah.
I love a fun, funky wine. Like, the weirder, the better. So I'm glad you brought that up and like identified it because I think a lot of spaces are just like, oh, well, they're not a wine person and kind of just leave it at that. You went a step further. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do have to give credit where credit's due. That's definitely on Rob. His focus is fair hiring practices, sustainability. So our wine list, whether it's a bottle on the shelf or on our glass pour list, is inherently reflective of that. And we do have to make a lot of conscientious decisions every single week when we're ordering to make sure like we're really excited about this bottle, but
Hmm.
does it fit the price of our demographic? If it
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't go on, which does differentiate us a little bit from a couple of other businesses in the city. But also, like, not every single person has to have the same mission that we do. We were really, really lucky in the sense that Lindsay Green, the editor the food and dining critic for the Detroit Free Press, put us up for top 10 best new dining experiences last year.
That's
And
awesome.
he kind of verbalized what I was always really, really struggling to verbalize, in the sense that we broke down the barrier of like the hipster, like pretentious, like that gatekeepy vibe
Yeah.
that keeps a lot of folks, predominantly folks of color, predominantly queer folks, folks that don't fit that quarter zip white guy in chinos vibe that you typically see.
Yeah. I know
It's like,
plenty of them.
yeah, I know where you live, buddy. But yeah, we were really, really mindful of trying to break down those stereotypes that make people feel other than or less than when they're in a space.
Mhm.
And I think we've been really effective in doing so. I definitely think there's a ton of work to be done moving forward, but it was really, really eye opening. And I don't know, it kind of felt like a baptism to hear someone verbalize like what I always knew our intentionality was going to be in opening up
Mhm.
the space, but to know that it's resonating and it's resonating exactly the way that we had intentioned is really, really special. I mean, we have a ton of regulars now that like were afraid to order a glass of wine because they didn't want to pronounce it. They didn't want to sound stupid. And I mean, I think when you walk into Vesper, it's pretty well known that, I mean, we're all a bunch of idiots just doing our best, but we we do try to make sure that no one feels like they're on the other side of the wall. And we're in this special group in which like we value literacy and, cookbook
Yeah.
authors from these very, very acclaimed restaurants that might not have the best, hiring and workworce practices,
Mhm.
but we still put them up because they're cool and they have a lot of followers. And same thing with like winemakers. There's a lot of problematic folks in there, and you won't see their wines on our menu. And yeah, it's really, really cool to see it like really sink in with folks. Cause I also think like you're seeing a lot of bookstore wine bars now, but I
Mhm.
don't know of another culinary bookstore and wine bar. So I think marrying this dual
Yeah.
concept has a lot of levels of confusion, and it's cool to see like within just 1 year, it's like really sitting in with people, which is awesome.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm so
I will
grateful.
s yeah. I mean, y'all I'm just proud. I'm just super proud of y'all. I know I know, like, we've just met because it was in August I was there, right? Was it
Yeah.
August? Yeah. See? Book tour brain. I don't remember. I just know I was gone for 6 months. Um, I mean, it's a very young friendship, but I am just so proud of what you and Rob have accomplished and keep accomplishing. Like,
Thank
I
you.
look on social media and I'm just like, "This is amazing." Like, you all are just kicking ass. And I wanna talk about the event when I was there
Yes. When I broke
because
my nose.
you broke your nose? Did I know
Do you
about
not
this?
I tried to hide it from you, but as soon
Oh,
as
did a book fall? Did like books fell, right?
no, a stack of plates went
Oh,
straight
that's
to the
right. I
dump.
remember you I remember this now because
I remember seeing you the next day, and I had, like, 2 black eyes, and I was like,
yeah,
Do I look
I
okay?" And you're
remember
like, "You
because
need more makeup."
Rob Rob greeted greeted me. I found John Kung because he was doing the event with me, and I arrived with Jonathan, from JP Makes because he was also part of the event, and so we went into the green room, and he was like, "Oh, Samantha's around somewhere," and then, like, we got our glasses of wine, you came in, and you're like, and John Kong was like, "You okay?" You're like, "I'm fine now." But then you told us, and I was like, "Holy shit, like,
Yeah, it was fun. It
that's
was a really
awful."
good time. Literally, as soon as you walked
Um,
in, I looked over, plates fell into my face, and I was like, "Rob, greet him."
ugh. Um, People don't tell you how dangerous it is to run hospitality spaces. It's rough. Um, but no, the event. So the event was wonderful. Again, thank you so much for having me. And, I honestly I think as a first time author, like the book tour, I was like, maybe if one person shows up, that's good. And I mean, I have no ties to Detroit, and uh, y'all showed up. Like that space was packed. I was like, oh, and it was like, as you said, like the reflection of everyone there. It was like so so inclusive, and it was so beautiful, and the questions were so thoughtful, and after we wrapped up the Q&A and like everyone hung out. Like most events, it's like they come, they get a book, get it signed, maybe they leave. People stayed. It was like, let's keep the party going. It was awesome. It was amazing to see the space come to life. it was amazing to, because I like to observe. And I mean, I think it's just part of being of the industry. Like, I like to watch the motion of service. And it was amazing to see people who recognized each other from a previous time that they were there, and they sparked up a conversation, relationships, friendships that you knew were very new and they were established there. And then hearing conversations of people talking about, so when we come back here next week, or they have this next event, and I was just like
Yes.
this is so cool. It's so cool. And, there's a couple of people that came to the event that have stayed in contact with me through social, and so that's what, and I guess that's all to say, like, what you've created doesn't only exist in Vesper, it is spilled outside of it too, and it's operating in the same manner. So,
Thank you. That's oh
super
god,
cool.
that's the kindest thing anyone could possibly say. Appreciate it.
Um, alright, let's shift gears, because I feel like we can talk about Vesper forever.
I am an only child,
Um
talking about myself.
Oh, so I was the only child for 14 years, so it's pretty
Yeah,
much,
same.
yeah, so we can do it. And I'm raising an only child, so that's just keeps going. Let's pivot and, talk about a queer food memory that you might have that feels foundational, like a moment where food created chosen family, safety, joy. Maybe you were aware of it at the time, and or maybe you didn't recognize it until years later. Like, do you have that one moment that's just like the core of you being this like hospitable community builder?
Ooh, what's beautiful is I feel like I have so many, especially living most of my pivotal developmental years on my own.
Yeah.
Food was always, like, the one way in which folks invited me into their communities and into their circles
Hmm.
and made me one of them. So I do have, like, so many beautiful, like, potluck experiences, living in Texas and Chicago. But I think the one thing that, like, really sticks out, the first time I moved to Paris, my partner, 2 days after I got there was like, "Hey, surprise. No, you don't speak the language, but I'm going to Australia for 2 months." And it's like, "Sick."
Oh, wow.
Great. I'm gonna have a very lonely summer.
Yeah. Great.
So it took me a bit to like muster up the courage. I'm a deeply anxious person at my core. To start going out by myself and to start feeling a little bit more comfortable in attempting a language that I was bastardizing at best, and to not just be this walking circus monster every single time I entered a restaurant or a bar. But there was one place in Paris that was very, very close to my apartment at the time. I don't know if they're still open. I hope they are. It was called Le Coquelicot, and every Tuesday or Wednesday they would have like a stewed rooster dish, and it
Mhm.
was you came in at this certain time, they'd put two down, and you'd end up sitting at this long communal table with whoever happened to be available at that time. And it was a higher end restaurant, and I didn't have a lot of means.
Mhm.
So to be able to have this, like, very, very luxurious, very it was like the epitome of hospitality. Like, I think the second or third time
Yeah.
I went there, like, they knew my drink order when I walked in. I got a hug when I
Ooh.
walked in. They would ask me questions about whatever I was rattling on about, anxiously just to fill the, silent gaps
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
conversation the week before. It was this deep sense of providing love and nourishment to our community in a way that's accessible and also kind of create this sacred little bubble in which for
Mhm.
2 hours once a week, we can all come together. We have this one common goal to sit and break bread and eat chicken together.
Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of like by the time I moved, that was it was just such a beautiful welcoming experience. Every single staff member went over and above to make sure that you were cared for and met you exactly where you were. Um, yeah, I think that's definitely the one that sticks out, and it's also a way in which I reflect on that space so often when we host events and, even if it's just like a book club reservation at Vesper, any single thing that you say to me on those, like, introductory phone calls, I wanna make sure
Mhm.
that you're cared for and met. If it's a birthday, we wanna make sure you have something special that speaks to you and not just like, "Oh, it's your birthday, so you get this, like, shitty cupcake we found across the street." something a little bit more intentional and mindful. But yeah, no, that place is so, I don't know, it holds a place in my heart that I'll never forget. And it, in so many ways, even though it's not the best restaurant by any means, it's not the worst
Yeah.
restaurant, obviously, but I don't know, what they did was so different compared to any other place that I'd been to. And they knew I was anxious and they held me. And it was
Yeah.
really, really cool. It was really special. It's really intimate.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I hope
Thanks
they're
for
still
sharing.
open.
We'll find out. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I just have 2 more questions. Since we were talking about Vesper and, like, everything that you've been doing, what are, like, dream events or, like, something you hope that you will be able to do, um, either, like, in programming or a new added element to Vesper? Like, what are those things that you, like, dreaming big, like, "This is what I'm striving for"?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. Of course, it's wonderful that we're able to make these connections that I've been working so hard at for so long, with actually getting authors to Detroit.
Yeah.
And kind of to speak to your experience, I mean, because Detroit has been a flyover city for author events, predominantly cookbook authors, just because we're the first culinary bookstore in Detroit. Hopefully, first of many. Folks get really excited when authors take the time to show up in their city and they welcome them with open arms, which is awesome. Moving forward, I have partnership with Senate candidate Dr. Abdul El Sayed. So he's going to be doing a couple
Cool.
of fundraising events at Vesper, which I'm so excited about. Our community overlaps in so many different ways. So I'm very, very excited to open up our doors to folks that might not have experienced us before and can add a new safe space to their, Rolodex at home. More community outreach events. I'm working on a project right now that I can't speak too much to. Because we're still working out the fine points, but a way in which we can be a hub for equitable hiring practices. And what I mean by equitable
Awesome.
hiring practices, Detroit is one of the blackest cities in the United States. If you walk into, which I'm sure you had this experience, most hospitality restaurants, front of house is not reflective of that. So
Yeah.
I've been working.
No.
I'm hoping to execute this project in which we have an open and transparent hiring fair, predominantly focused on folks that are Black and Brown and of the LGBTQIA community that are oftentimes not represented in front of house staff and also not getting those really high paying jobs that they're so qualified for just because I can't tell you how many times I've talked to other friends and business owners that are just like, well, we hire from our pool and people of color don't apply. It's like, well, there's an issue in how you're
Oof.
hiring. If that's
Yeah.
the case, you need to pivot or you
Yeah.
need to adjust your space or adjust the way in which you interact with folks within
You're the
your.
problem.
Exactly. Like, I'm sorry, like, I don't subscribe.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed that is coming into fruition very, very soon. And just expanding our practices with the Palestinian and Latinx community. I mean, ICE presence in Detroit has always been a thing. It is ramping up
Mhm.
vehemently, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So we are trying to find ways in which we can help fundraise for Assembly Detroit to provide meals, which is something that we have a couple of coals in the fire right now to make sure that if your family is affected by ICE presence or you don't feel so comfortable leaving your home, we can get meals delivered to you that speak to your culture. And especially with the Palestinian community, I try to program as much as I possibly can. Of course, Dearborn is the highest population of Arabs
Yeah.
the in North
Yeah.
America, and it's 10 minutes away from our space. So trying to make sure that events and fundraising and donation efforts are orbiting these two specific marginalized groups of folks, that's our focus moving forward. So yeah, a lot of coals in the fire as far as community outreach, but those are, I think, some of the projects that I'm most excited about.
It is so beautiful and amazing, and the fact that you are actively thinking about this in the business model. Like, these are your guests that come to Vesper, and you're extending care, and it's amazing and so great to see.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so cool.
I'm
I feel like all of us have like terrible employment experiences, and we
Mhm.
want to be really mindful of using that as a way in which to gauge. We have to treat our staff and
Mhm.
empower our. My goal as an employer, only goal is to make sure that my staff outgrows me and moves on to do bigger and better things. So you have that responsibility and you have the responsibility to keep your team safe. You have no other responsibilities. Those are the only two paramount
Correct.
things in owning a business. And it's so
So
cool to
true.
like, yeah, have a team that likes coming into work. They text me
Yeah.
off hours. I can also confidently say that every single member of my staff knows what an ICE warrant actually is, has to be signed by a judge. It's a weird training we had to do, but like I love that they're able, when I step foot out of that building, to maintain care and like a conscientious concern for every single person that
Yeah.
walks through that door. And it's cool. It's really cool. That's always something I
Awesome.
wanted in an employer, and it's so beautiful that I get to be that employer now.
Yeah. It's amazing. Thanks, y'all. Like,
And
thanks for everything y'all do. Like, it's so great. All right, last question. Okay.
sure.
And this is the question that every guest gets asked. So, I'm a firm believer that as a queer community, we can always uplift each other a little bit better, a little bit more, and especially in the food space. And so, I'm wondering who are two, maybe three queer food stars? So, these could be chefs, writers, booksellers, winemakers. If their profession touches food, let's talk about it. But who do you think we should know more about that you are just like super excited about what they're doing and what they're providing for the community?
Ooh. So first answer would definitely be Sammy Tamimi, who's worked with Atoa Galani for God only knows how many years. And it's really, really special to see him kind of come into his own light and gifted his own flowers. As far as cookbook authors, Bustani was one of my favorite books that came out in 2025. And it's so deeply intimate in his Palestinian upbringing. It speaks to the joy of Palestine that I feel like we don't often get to focus on.
Hmm.
And I just think as a person, there is no more deeply empathetic and kind and generous and just wonderful human being, especially in the cookbook realm right now. So definitely Sammy. Um, I'm super biased, but our friend John Kung, man,
John's
John,
great.
I would do anything for that man. He is such a wonderful person. Not only has he like gone above and beyond to like help us as the little guys get some authors into town, like yourself, but it's really awesome to see him specifically. And I've noticed this especially over the course of the last year, use his platform and take a lot of very, I mean, calculated risks, but he
Hmm.
is doing a lot to say the things and do the things that so many of us don't feel like we have a safety net in which to act upon.
Yeah.
It's really cool to watch him like further develop his political presence
Hmm.
and speak up for folks that don't often have a seat at the table. I'm really, really proud of him, and I'm really excited to see what comes of the next year of him. He's like on the precipice, I think, of something really, really great, and it's awesome to be a part of the journey. But I'm just so grateful, you know?
Yeah. It's so true. Like I have seen that as well in the past year. And I think it's a really good example of someone evolving their platform and evolving what they do. John is still very much connected to food, and food is always a part of
Yeah,
the message and the brand, but he really is, like you said, taking those risks of what others, whether they just don't want to say it at all or they aren't saying it because of own personal safety, like really stepping out. And he's so unbelievably smart, like, so smart.
such a
Um,
groveling idiot every time I talk to him. I was like, I got thoughts too, but you're
yeah,
just so articulate.
yeah. But no, I agree. It's been amazing to see this past year of this evolution of just doing what John has always done, but just amplifying it 10 times.
Yeah, he's, like, really
Yeah.
stepping into himself in, like, a really, really
Yes.
specific and, calculated way, and it's
Yeah.
awesome to see.
It's really beautiful. Well, I hate that we have to say goodbye because this was great and I loved catching up with you, but I really, really appreciate you taking the time and sharing more about Vesper and just all the wonderful things that you're doing. And I really hope that
Thank you, friend.
I can get back up to Detroit soon.
Please do, I miss you. Thank you
Oh,
so
I miss you too.
yeah, no, I just, thank you so much for having me. I think I was a little surprised when you reached out to me, and I have
Why?
an inferiority complex,
I mean,
especially
I get it. would say the same thing too if the roles were reversed. I'd be like, why me?
Yeah, and I think that, this is something that I talked to my team about this past week 'cause they're just like, "Are you excited for your podcast? Are you excited for your podcast?" It's like, "Yeah, I am." Actually, I feel like a lot of times, bisexual folks are left out of the conversation, and it's still,
Hmm.
kinda seen as a novelty, or you're not queer enough and you're not straight
Yeah,
enough, kinda stuck in this purgatory. And, I'm really grateful that you included me. It's lovely to be seen and heard and held by you. Appreciate you, friend.
absolutely. Appreciate you. Have a good rest of the week.
You too. No more snow.
No more snow. That's episode 9 with Symantha Duggan. Now go check out Vesper Books Wine if you're in Detroit and support spaces built with intention and care for their community. And if you're a cookbook author planning a tour, don't sleep on Detroit. Take care.